this video, I'm going to discuss food additives and antibiotics in food that affect the microbiome, with children being most vulnerable. Hello, my name is Dr. Iggy Soosay, and I'm a functional or integrative medical doctor. Welcome to my channel, Gut Health for Life, where I'll be discussing all issues related to gut health and the microbiome, with information based on published scientific research. I'm going to discuss food additives and the effect on the microbiome and on the brain. Antibiotics, whilst not a food additive, inadvertently get into our food. I will discuss how that happens and what we can do about it. Before the advent of chemicals, the only way to preserve foods was to salt it or dry it. That's been done for thousands of years. In those times, people ate to live. Now it seems we live to eat, especially in westernized societies. With the abundance of food and many food manufacturers competing to get our attention, they are employing chemicals to do that. Food has to be manufactured and shipped and stored. It can't be bad. It must smell good. It must look good and taste good. To do that, more than 2,500 additives are intentionally added to food. They're made up of flavor enhancers, sweeteners, coloring agents, texture modifiers like emulsifiers, preservatives, stabilizers, foaming agents, gelling agents, and more. Dyes to color foods have been used to manufacture products that look more pleasing to consumers. For example, to intensify the white color of milk, titanium dioxide is used, when in fact natural milk tends to be a little bit colored, off-white. Titanium dioxide can cause dysbiosis of the gut microbiome. Other intense colors in foods like ice cream and sweets are there to please the eye but affect the gut and the microbiome. The list of 2,500 also includes food contact materials including adhesives, dyes, coatings, paper, cardboard, and plastic that may contaminate food as part of the packaging or manufacturing equipment. They're called indirect food additives. Are they safe? Surely they must be safe or the government would not allow them to be used. Well, let's see. The World Health Organization has an expert committee to improve food additives that can be traded internationally. Studies done on additives are usually done on an individual basis. One chemical is tested at the time. But in the real world, there are multiple additives in food products. What are the effects of two possible interacting chemicals in the body? What about three of them? Studies show that the average processed food has 5 food additives. You don't need a study to prove that. Just look at the products on the supermarket shelves. What are the interactions of those multiple chemicals? We don't know or can't know until studies are done. Is it even possible to study the interaction of 5 different food additives taken from 2,500 in different combinations? What about children? How do these chemicals affect them? Children are not small adults. Their brains, detoxification systems, and organs are still developing and so are vulnerable to disruption by chemicals. To illustrate the chemical burden on a child, let's use a lollipop as an example. Let's compare that lollipop as eaten by a 60-kilogram adult and a 6-kilogram child. Those chemicals, including colors and flavors in the adult, are spread over 60 kilograms, but only 6 kilograms in a child. So a child is ineffectively getting 10 times more chemicals than the adult per kilogram of body weight. Putting it another way, to make the burden the same, the 60-kilogram adult has to eat 10 lollipops to equate that with the child. You can see the load or burden this is putting on the child. So what effect do these additives have on the body other than what has been mentioned? There seems to be a correlation between high exposure to food additives and behavioral and brain disorders, such as memory and movement disorders. These changes are thought to be due to the chemical effects on the microbiome and the gut and the brain. artificial food colors have been associated with dysbiosis, colonic DNA damage, attention deficit disorders, or hyperactivity disorder symptoms. I now want to discuss something that I mentioned at the start, but most people are not familiar with, and that is the exposure to antibiotics via food. By way of background, more antibiotics are used in agriculture than are consumed by people. In Australia, over 600,000 kilograms of antibiotics are used per year on animals. 98% of them are used in farm animals. By comparison, humans consume just over 120,000 kilograms of antibiotics per year. Of those 600,000, 28,000 kilograms are used as growth promoters on farm animals, meaning to fatten them. 75% of antibiotics fed to animals are excreted via urine or feces. So these antibiotics end up in the waterways, that is the rivers, or in manure. This manure, if used to grow vegetables, can affect the bacteria in the soils that then affect the quality of the plant. Of the absorbed antibiotics by the farm animals, some will be stored in the fat of the animal and can end up on the dinner plate. Some of our patients cannot understand why, on a stool analysis, their microbiome is in an unbalanced state or in dysbiosis with the friendly bacteria at very low levels. They have not had antibiotics in years, but they eat meat and or chicken. Even farm fish are given antibiotics. The antibiotics, of course, can affect the gut microbiome. I mentioned antibiotics ending up in rivers. Research from York University looked at 14 commonly used antibiotics in rivers in 72 countries across 6 continents and found antibiotics at 65% of those sites monitored. Some of these antibiotics are from urine from humans who have consumed antibiotics, but also from animals. No Australian rivers were mentioned in the report. The problem with the waterways being contaminated by antibiotics and animals being given the antibiotics is the issue of antibiotic resistance. Bacteria in the water exposed to antibiotics can develop resistance to them. If humans get an infection from those bacteria that have developed antibiotic resistance, then they will have more difficulty overcoming that infection. As the problem of antibiotic resistance continues, we may get to a stage where there are no effective antibiotics available to overcome an infection. Antibiotic resistance is already a problem, especially in the hospital environment. So in summary, we are potentially exposed to over 2,500 food additives. Children are particularly vulnerable to these additives. We can be contaminated by antibiotics fed to farm animals, including farm fish. The waterways may be contaminated by antibiotics. What can we do? Eat food in its natural state, that is fresh vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds and legumes, and fruit, of course. Keep processed foods to a minimum. If you're a big meat eater, switch to organic meat and chicken where possible. As for fish, eat wild-caught fish. I hope you found this information useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for watching.